Welcome back, everybody, to the channel. It's me, Alejandro Mendoza, or the Nerdy Chicano. Either way how you say it, it's all good here. And we're back again for another installment of Between the Frames as we conclude our journey through Krzysztof Kieslowski's Dekalog from the Criterion collection. Of course, last week we discussed Dekalog 9, and today we conclude this set as we discuss the final film in this 12 film set, Dekalog 10. But before we can get into any of that, I do have an update for you all, my friends. I'm not going to continue calling these films Between the Frames. I've pretty much noticed that the original idea I had in stone for one I wanted to call Between the Frames was more of what I do on the Cinema Condition podcast, which I know there hasn't been an episode as of late. It's been really hard to schedule guests for that, but don't be worried. A new episode of Cinema Condition is coming soon. I am in the works of making that happen, but I wanted Between the Frames to be something more like the Cinema Condition, and now that I've noticed that that's not really the case of what I wanted for it to become, it ended up becoming more of like a review. So what I'm going to do is that the name Between the Frames is pretty much going to be the thing I'm going to call my video essays on my Patreon. Whereas these videos like this are just going to be straight up reviews. I'm still going to be covering box sets. Every Monday will be, not every Monday. Every Wednesday will be a review from said box set that we're covering, and every Friday will be an extra review of another Blu-ray in 4K. Nothing is really changing in regards to that. Everything is staying the same within the videos. They're just not going to be called Between the Frames of Dekalog 10 anymore. They're going to be called blank review, and I hope that you all understand. And it's not something bad. It's just these videos just don't fit the name of what I thought the Between the Frames was going to be, so I'm kind of going to switch that over to something that actually does fit the name of Between the Frames. So without further ado, I want to thank you all so much for the love on the channel, and I also want to thank you all for subscribing to the channel. If you're not subscribed and you enjoy content like physical media and talking about Blu-rays and 4Ks, then this is the channel for you. Make sure you subscribe, and when you subscribe, you click that notification bell so you don't miss a single lick of content. And of course, if you want to watch videos like my video essays, and if you want to get early access, then you want to go ahead and go to www.patreon.com/thenerdykchicano and check out the tiers on there. Of course, it is not a mandatory thing to pledge to the Patreon, but it is appreciated if you do. Either way, I appreciate anybody who watches these videos and leaves a comment and leaves a like and all those things. I'm glad that we get to have this space here where we can talk with each other about the things we love, like physical media. But let's go ahead and get into today's video. So last week we looked at the 9th commandment in Dekalog 9, which was "Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife." And today we're looking at the 10th imperative of the 10 commandments in Dekalog 10, which is "Thou shalt not covet." And that's more so, but like I was describing on last week's video, that Kieslowski is really interested in examining covet in two different styles within 9 and 10. Because in 9, he gives you a very bleak look at what coveting means. Whereas in this one in 10, he approaches it by using black comedy and by giving us more of a light-hearted approach to these films, which is not normal when it comes to this set, really, because a lot of these films are really bleak, and it's understandable. It's post-war Poland. It's going to be very bleak. But Dekalog 10 ends more on a happy note and more on an uplifting manner. So that was just odd for a man who decided that the past 9 films needed to be very bleak. Basically, Krzysztof Kieslowski wants to approach this with the story of two brothers. These two brothers recently are going through a really, really tough loss, as they've lost their father, who was pretty absent, but their father was a huge stamp collector, and he had stamps of all. I mean, he had some rare ones, he had some not so rare ones, but his father also owed a lot of money before he died, And that debt collector pays them a visit as they're going through the belongings of their father at his apartment. And basically, they have to come up with about 220,000 of the currency in Poland, or he's going to choose something in that apartment and take it with him that is pretty much equal to the value of 220,000 of the currency that is in Poland. So Kieslowski kind of takes this narrative and he approaches it, of course, with hints of black comedy, but also kind of giving you a very detailed look at like your standard Cain and Abel story, really. What you would think would be a Cain and Abel story, but at the end is not what it seems, because the two brothers kind of go on this journey together, and once the stuff gets really, really out of hand is when they start to like double cross each other, but at the end they come back together and pretty much laugh it off and figure out that they were being conned and that it was all part of this like heist and scheme that these people were playing on the side. But Kieslowski kind of brings that to the screen in such an interesting manner, and he kind of figures out how to play with that with his black comedy style within this film, which I was really surprised at, because I did not think that Krzysztof Kieslowski was, not that I didn't think he was capable of, but I just hadn't seen anything that kind of showed me that he had this trick up his sleeve. And I found that part of the narrative to be really interesting, and it kept me engaged in the story and really the conflict at hand. Yet it has the same problem as I have with 9. Its pace holds it back so much, and it's just not as interesting as the other films that come before it. If this would have been somewhere in the middle, and I understand why it's not going to be in the middle, because it's literally the 10th commandment, so this needs to be literally the last film. But if something like this would have been more so in the middle, I could have understood how it works in the series overall. But I'm left kind of with more questions and answers when the film ends. But I still really did like the way that Kieslowski approaches this, and I really like the cinematography that is done in this film by Jacek Blavitt, and I really, really, really like the score from Bresner again. Pretty much the same score he's been doing throughout the whole series, but he does add some extra notes here and there with some extra songs. But I really like what they brought to the table within the atmosphere of Dekalog 10. But Kieslowski does a great job at being able to handle this, and he really does show the tense battle that starts from a really small thing that you would think, okay, well, he's gonna have this stamp, and it just escalates and escalates until there's like a tipping point, and that's the tipping point is when the brothers start to, double cross each other, but they end up coming back together in that resolution. But I just am so surprised, enthralled, and just generally in love with the way that Krzysztof Kieslowski handles the narrative within Dekalog 10. So I can say that this is a good conclusion. It's not a great conclusion to the Decalogue, but it is a good conclusion, and it's really nice to end more on a uplifting note than a very somber note compared to all of the other films that come before this one. Now let's talk about the restoration. I watched this film on my Panasonic 4K player on my TCL 4K TV, and I'm pretty sure you all have been tired of me having to say this, but I did benefit from some upscaling, and I've got to say that this restoration looks great, just like the other 9 films that come before this. I really like the use of, once again, half of a muted color palette that still looks sharp and great, and a very vibrant color palette when things start to soften and things start to get a little less hectic within the film. And overall, thanks and love and kudos needs to be given to the people over at TVP who handled this restoration, and also to the people at the Criterion Collection who handled the audio side of this restoration. Because Not just Dekalog 10, but the Dekalog in general is a great restoration. It's great 4K digital restorations. They're all provided from the original camera negative, so we know that when it comes to the color palette and it comes to the way that sharpness will show within the resolution, that it's gonna look fantastic. And that's really what I felt throughout this whole set, especially with Dekalog 10, that it just looks wonderful. It sounds great. The audio is pretty much nothing bad to talk about. Like, when it comes to Dekalog 10 and every single one of the films that come before this, even including a short film about love and killing, no film ever has bad audio. You know, there was some films where I felt like, oh, the audio wasn't as great as the other one, but overall, I can't say I've had complaints. You know, and that's going to be the same thing for Dekalog 10. I love the way that the sound effects are balanced with the score and the dialogue. Everything sounds great. Just like when it comes to the video aspect, everything looks great. Colors are popping when they need a pop. And it's just, that's the beauty of these restorations, especially when you take them from the original camera negative. You would think that muted colors aren't going to look so vibrant on the screen because they're muted, but they just look so attractive on my TV when I watch this on my 4K player. And I just was in love with the way that this disc looked and this film looked. So I've got to say, just to conclude this set, I just love the way that this looked. I love the way that this sounds. I'm happy that I have it on me now, and I'm glad that it's part of my collection. I am not going to buy the Three Colors trilogy on Blu-ray because I have a very, very, very strong feeling that those films are coming to 4K very soon, because new 4K new 4K transfers are actually playing in theaters now. So when it comes to covering some more Kieslowski, I'm gonna be so excited because this has just been wonderful, and I'm so glad I bought this on my 2021 November sale at the Barnes & Nobles. And definitely I recommend the Dekalog from Krzysztof Kieslowski. If you are looking for something to buy in November, this is definitely one of them. If you're looking to go for a set but you don't have the money to pay for something like the Complete Films of Agnes Varda, the Essential Fellini set, or the Ingmar Bergman Cinema set, get the Dekalog. I like this set a lot, and I really enjoyed going through these films. I can't wait to go through the special features and read these essays, but there's not much else to say. I definitely give this set, now having watched all the films, I'm gonna go ahead and give it a 4.5 out of 5. It's almost near perfect, y'all. It's almost perfect, but there are things that, you know, the films didn't do for me as much as the other films, and there are films that I like more than the others. At least there wasn't a film that I didn't like in this set, but every one of them I enjoyed. I was very interested in the thematic approach, and they were just great. It was just great cinema to watch, and that's why I loved Krzysztof Kieslowski's Dekalog. Now, next week, we are going to start looking at our new set here as we go through these reviews, and I'm very excited because I bought this on a flash sale in 2021 as well. And I never got the chance to watch it because it just started piling up with my backlog. But this director is somebody who I am vastly interested in, even though I know the man is a terrible person. He's scum of the earth. His films interest me so much, and what he has to say within them, I'm so drawn to these films. And that set that we're covering is none other than Pier Paolo Pasolini's The Trilogy of Life from the Criterion collection. We are going to be doing Criterion sets for this one and then the next one, but in November I'm going to have to start buying some more or get some Arrow video sets. Either way, you know, we have a good variety of films that we cover on the channel. But next week we're going to start talking about this Trilogy of Life set as we look at the Decameron, and then after that we will look at the Canterbury Tales, and then we will end our look at the Trilogy of Life with Arabian Nights. So I'm excited to get to that, and I hope you all are excited too. And of course, if you want to connect with me on all things social media, make sure you follow me at The Nerdy Chicano on both Instagram and Twitter, as well as Twitch, TikTok, Letterboxd, and Serialized. All those things you can find me under the same at The Nerdy Chicano. And of course, if you want to go ahead and keep up to date with the Nerdcore, visiting our website, thenerdcore.com, and checking us out on Twitch and on YouTube under the same at The Nerd Core. I will see you all my friends next week as we start our reviews of the Trilogy of Life. But in the meantime, to my wonderful cinephiles and renowned scholars, celebrate the love of cinema today, tomorrow, and every day after. Catch you all on the next one, guys. Bye.